Massachusetts politicians, pollsters, and pundits are processing the 2024 election results, but most don't have an obvious next step in front of them. After all, the state swung right but remains very, very blue, and Democrats still have a supermajority in the state legislature, plus control of all the state constitutional offices. But when it comes to policy, Massachusetts is set to be on the outs with the Trump administration come January. Everything from state climate policy, reproductive care obligations, to educational priorities may be on the line. And once again, the state attorney general is poised to take center stage during a Trump administration. I'm Jennifer Smith, and this is the Codcast, Commonwealth Beacon's podcast about policy and civic life here in Massachusetts. Today, I'm joined by Attorney General Andrea Campbell. Her predecessor, now Governor Maura Healey, made headline after headline fighting the Trump administration on issues like immigration enforcement and gun policy the first time around. So, what's up first on the docket for Andrea Campbell? Attorney General, you've had a week to process and start planning after the results of the election came through. So let's start with the maybe first question, the easiest question, the hardest question. Where is your head at after 7 days?
Well, I think as I told my team, I'm ready for the work, right? I've always focused on the work. I think there are many out there doing the blame game or complaining. We don't have time for that. I told my team to take whatever time they would need to grieve. I recognize that people are grieving. Some folks are angry, they're depressed, they're fearful, and rightfully so. But I'm focused on the work, and most importantly, acknowledging that with any democracy, the transition of power must be peaceful. Donald Trump is the president-elect, but he's also been crystal clear as to what he would do as president. And so we have been preparing contingency planning, which is no longer contingent, right? To protect the values of our residents and Massachusetts and to protect the freedoms for our residents. So I'm ready to get to work.
So let's dig into that a little bit. When you were thinking about the possible ways that this could go, thinking about, what you needed to gear up for in case this happened, what did that actually look like? What was the planning? It wasn't like this was an uneventful year to begin with for your office. So what were you trying to do?
Number one, I was stressing even before this election, the power of an attorney general. And I think many folks don't understand that this office has unique tools, our litigation and enforcement tools, our grant making tools, our ability to give out resources and money to grant all types of initiatives, our legislative tool. We can file legislation. So we can do a whole bunch of things to protect our residents. And that hasn't changed. If anything, we are now using these same tools to ensure that the president-elect doesn't harm our constituents, right? Doesn't harm folks in trying to either remove them from this country illegally, doesn't harm our climate and environmental justice initiatives, our housing work that we have been doing, our work to protect our elders, whether they live in assisted living or long-term care facilities, our work to help families build wealth. So we have been doing significant work, and we are going into this with the hope that there's a federal administration starting in January that will collaborate with us. But if they are unwilling to do that, if they're more willing to violate our laws or to violate our policies and practices here, we're going to stand up for our residents. We're going to fight to protect them. And we're going to do everything we can in our power to ensure that the work we were already doing continues in the face of any threats.
So what is the national landscape mean in terms of the impact here? A lot of people remember the first Trump administration, which, for instance, did not have a Republican Senate as well. The Supreme Court was not as unevenly balanced in terms of conservative versus liberal judges. So how have you tried to tailor the approach of the office for what is now, you might think, a less friendly national landscape for states like Massachusetts?
Well, all of the work we have been doing has always had a local and a national focus. And if anything, we've been reminding folks as we take on issues of affordability in the healthcare context, in the housing context, in the energy context, or as we take on making sure folks have access to student loan relief, protecting our young people and dealing with this mental health epidemic. All of this work we were doing focusing locally, but also nationally. So working with AGs across the country to also push forward these initiatives. And sadly, we didn't always have a Congress that was working to get things done. We didn't have a Supreme Court that was working in the best interests of our constituents here, and we were still able to get things done. So I've been telling folks this is an opportunity for us, as heartbreaking and heart wrenching as it is. And I don't want to discount that. There are people in this state, in the great Commonwealth of Massachusetts, who are living in fear. Some of our elders, those in our LGBTQ plus community, our trans youth, some of our folks who, of course, are people of color, you name it. But this is an opportunity for us to continue to roll up our sleeves and do what we were doing before. It may now have a more expanded national presence in terms of the work, and that's okay. We were doing it before, but we have tools to take on any type of threat. We're not afraid to use those tools. And we also don't want this work to always be reactive. We've been doing incredible proactive work, and where we have to get reactive, we will. But we want our folks to understand that we're prepared, we're ready, and that we will do everything we can to protect them. And of course, work with other AGs across the country to do it in partnership and collaboration.
Have you talked with Governor Healey about this? Because as I think most people are aware, in a lot of ways, she sort of made her name on a national and also state level by being AG during the first Trump administration that involved taking a rather combative stance, sort of in the same way that you're describing. So what are the lessons from her approach and kind of what's carried over since then? Have you talked about it?
Well, not specifically in the weeds on this. I think what every state elected in Massachusetts understands right now, and they get it deeply, including the governor, is that the AGs in this moment in time have to step up. And we've already been doing that, right? This office is not just about talk, it is about action and getting things done. And now there is a hyper focus and more attention on AG offices, particularly Democratic AGs, because this is the office that has the tools to protect the values and the freedoms and the rights of our constituents. And of course, do that in partnership with our state electeds, which we will always do. And if anything, I feel really blessed to work with a team that has institutional knowledge. So, lawyers and staff members who were here during the first Trump administration, who worked really hard to protect our residents. That institutional knowledge still exists in the office. And I also have new staff members, new lawyers, and new team members, and new staff members who want to think outside the box, who, similar to me, see this as an opportunity to pull on that institutional experience, but also to make sure that we're thinking outside the box, we're being creative in how we continue to deliver for our constituents. We stand up for their rights in every context, whether reproductive healthcare generally, access to gender affirming care, all things related to affordability, climate justice, environmental justice, everything related to our kids. That work, of course, will continue, but now we will look to more partners to help us continue to protect our residents.
And as you know, I love an example. So if people are trying to figure out, well, what does that actually look like in practice? Is there something specific that might illustrate the approach that you're taking to kind of these fights coming forward? What does it mean when you say protecting reproductive justice in your capacity as AG here, for instance?
I'll give a couple examples. One is absolutely reproductive health care. You had an AG office working with the state legislature, working with community-based and health-based organizations to ensure that residents here in Massachusetts had access to the right to an abortion. They codified that. Our SHIELD law, it is the most aggressive and expansive SHIELD law in the country. And other states have looked to our law to create their own legislation in their respective states to protect providers and patients who are seeking access to this care. So we have been at the forefront of reproductive health care. Under my administration, we now have the Reproductive Justice Unit in the office, building on the implementation of the SHIELD law and other work, and making sure it's intersectional, so protecting access to gender affirming care, addressing Black maternal health inequities. So that portfolio of work will continue. And we have tools here to intervene, to file legislation, to continue to protect our residents here in Massachusetts. The other example I want to lift up is student loan debt. This is a $1 billion issue in Massachusetts affecting millions of residents. We have put more resources into this division and body of work as a way to not only address affordability issues, but also to help close the racial wealth gap. This office also was at the forefront of suing the previous administration when they looked to block access to beneficial programming for student loan relief, especially for public employees. So we'll continue that leadership, we'll continue that work. And we don't anticipate or know everything that's going to come, but I want folks to know their AG is ready. I have their back. This office has their back. And we're going to make sure we have open lines of communication to make sure that residents are also in partnership with us as we do this work going forward.
And how are you processing what a lot of folks have sort of been trying to deal with, which is that this was not 2020, this was not 2016. This looks like it's going to be both a popular vote win. There have been shifts toward Trump all across the country, including in Massachusetts, though obviously it started from a bluer place, so it's not as apparent when you kind of look at the general maps. So how are you thinking about your responsibility to also pay attention to the constituents who say might have wanted either this president or these policies? How are you balancing the different constituencies that also voted for you as AG?
I make it crystal clear I'm the attorney general for every resident that lives in Massachusetts. Even when I campaigned for this office, I went into pockets of the state that people said were red or purple and where they suggested I had no business being there. And I said, do residents in Massachusetts live there? They do. Well, I'm going to show up and talk about the vision I have for this office and the tools of this office that are available to help them with their daily needs and struggles. And we did that. And so that has not changed. If anything, I think it's a model of leadership we need to see more in this country. Stop with the blame game. Residents don't have time for that. If anything, every resident that I am interacting with, including business leaders, nonprofit leaders, those in our philanthropic community, our healthcare community, you name it, every stakeholder in this great ecosystem in Massachusetts, they want to know, how is this office addressing the pressing issues of the day? How are we going to protect the rule of law, the integrity of our democratic institutions? How are we going to address issues of affordability? How are we going to help our kids, including addressing the mental health epidemic we're seeing in this country and in Massachusetts? How are we going to help our elders and our most vulnerable? That's what they care about. And those are the issues that we're going to focus on. And the last I checked, it's not a bipartisan check a box. This is just about the work in the substance. And for me, how you show up in this moment in time is important. So we're focused on the work, we're focusing on bringing people together, and we're focusing on, most importantly, getting things done.
Are there any subjects that seem like they're suddenly going to be a bit more difficult to end up working toward under this administration? The one that comes to mind for me, just because I wrote about it recently, is gun legislation. There are obviously going to be challenges to the state's new gun laws. And so when there's a presidential shift in areas like that, where there are big partisan divides, you might think that it's going to become more of a challenge to try and defend the state law under that circumstance. Is there any pivoting that you have been trying to do, either as an office or personally, to think about how you're approaching it under a new administration?
I want our residents to know that I personally, as their AG and professionally, am absolutely ready for any fight that lies ahead. And we have actually already been in the fight. So when you mention gun violence and gun violence prevention, people have been coming after our progressive gun laws in this state since Bruin. And so folks have been challenging our assault weapons ban, our recent gun legislation. Folks have been challenging these for years now. And we have been standing up, fighting in court to protect them, and we have been winning. In our new gun violence prevention unit, I got that unit off the ground, not only to enforce our gun laws with our lawyers and our staff all across the office, but to also think about our other tools that are non-litigation, but are equally important. Our grant making tool. We just put out a grant for $1 million to fund public health organizations that have a track record of addressing gun violence. That is new with respect to the work of this office. We also are in community thinking about advisory groups and expansive ways in which folks can inform the work that we do. We're showing up with AGs all across this country to ensure that our families and our communities are safe from gun violence. We are taking guns off the street and addressing gun trafficking and ghost guns through legislative fixes and through our criminal enforcement work. So we have been fighting the fight, and we will continue that work in January in the next 4 years. And so I want folks to recognize that as being something that is to be hopeful and optimistic about. People have already been coming for us in our laws. And this administration, I'm sure, will also try to do the same, as evidence either in their Project 2025 report or other rhetoric that they have shared. I still hope that they will look to collaborate with us, including on protecting our kids from gun violence. But if they don't, the fight we have been in, we will continue on behalf of our constituents and do it in such a way where we're operating with a sense of urgency in bringing more people into the fold to help us do this work.
So the last thing that I wanted to ask is actually something of a reflection of how we met. Listeners might know at this point that I've covered you since you started running for election city council. So your entire political career has been essentially under the span of a Trump, then Biden, and now it looks like another Trump administration. I wonder if we could just end on kind of how you personally have thought about kind of the political arc on a national level while you've been in office. Does it feel like progress? Does it feel like a wobble? What's this look like from your end?
It's a great point you make. I was an elected official when Trump was elected the first time, obviously serving when Biden was president and is president, of course, and then Vice President Harris. I'm personally ready because I have seen various iterations, right? But I want folks to understand that for me, this work has always been about systems work, not one individual, not even one man. I got into government and government work because I wanted government to be more responsive to the needs of constituents and to use the tools of government to actually help people. And what I have recognized is, especially when I was on the city council, just how much money and time we waste not helping people. So now I have a bigger platform with more tools, more resources. And in this season and in this moment, I'm going to make sure that this office does not waste any time and does not waste any resources or tools that we have. We are going to continue to help people. We are going to continue to fight for people. We're going to continue to transform systems so that they better serve our constituents. And government is more responsive, not just in talk, in word, in talking points, but in actual deliverables. So the work we're doing on climate justice, environmental justice, reproductive health care, Black maternal health, housing, and all things related to affordability, everything we're doing to protect our kids, because I'm also a mom of two beautiful boys, and that is a priority, their well-being. All of this work is just that, making government actually work for people and deliver for them. And that is a message we'll carry locally and nationally and demonstrate what that actually looks like in action. And now we recognize, the work was local and national before. It may be more heightened at the national level come January, and that's okay. We're prepared for it. I'm prepared personally. This office is prepared as well. And we're actually looking forward to this challenge because at the end of the day, for me, it's just another way in which we have to keep pushing for government to do its part of helping people and returning to them, frankly, their taxpayer dollars, right? Making sure that it's spent wisely, but most importantly, that it's delivering for them.
Thanks again to Attorney General Andrea Campbell for joining me on the Codcast. Thank you for listening. I'm Jennifer Smith. Our producer is Claire Wigglesworth. Leave a rating and review wherever you're hearing this now if you want to help other folks find us, and email codcast@commonwealthbeacon.org if you ever want to get in touch directly. We'll be back soon.